Christmas, everyone, to the, ano ba ang tama, DFA press corps or foreign relations beat. For all of you sa media, let me start out by saying that Christmas is about gratitude. So whether you're a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, diba? It's about God giving His very best, His Son. And because He gave His very best, not only are we saved, but because we are thankful, no? So let me first express the thankfulness of the whole DFA family to you in the mainstream media, in the new media. It might not always seem that we appreciate you. When I was in the Senate and the House, of course, as an oppositionist, a lot of the times, mas nadadama niya yung access at saka thankfulness, di ba? Mas naririnig nyo na you're an essential part of democracy, of transparency, accountability, about justice, and about the way of life ng tayong mga Pilipino. No? And that still holds true. Then the question siguro is, how come sometimes we are not as accessible or we do not answer in a more transparent way? Let me clarify that. First of all, we will not lie to you. Okay? It is against the Duterte administration policy, it's against the DFA policy to lie to you. Okay. Having said that, whether you talk about diplomatic negotiations, whether you talk about diplomatic relations, or you talk about operational security, there are times when DFA has to observe what I will call strategic silence. Meaning, when there are times that we'll have to ask you to read between the lines, dahil hindi naman tayo nagbabago ng policy. But if we say X, magagalit si Y. Pag we say Y, magagalit si X. But actually, yung magagalit, yung matutuwa, is part of everyday life and part of diplomacy. But sometimes kasi yung magagalit translates into danger for our citizens all around the world. No? And sometimes, so may it be specific issues, no, of the Middle East, may it be the South China Sea, etc. No? Sometimes we have some information that we cannot make available yet for you because it will either complicate the matter or imbis na isa lang ang kausap o isa lang ang kaaway, lalaki. No? So we sometimes need room to negotiate. No? So it's not an excuse. Feel free to dig, feel free to get your sources, if you have information, feel free to ask us. I'm just saying, we cannot change next year. We can change in the sense that we can have a better press room, we can have closer ties between OPD, between OB here, Elmer, and the rest of my team and the team of the DFA, no? And of course, if you want me to show myself to you every other week or every week, no? Pwede naman yon. I'm just, pinauuna ko lang sa inyo kasi ang ibig sabihin ng sorry, hindi mo na uulitin. No? So I just want to tell you, we're thankful, but we're not saying sorry for something that we will do again. Di ba? Which is always protect the interests of Filipino people and to think first before we speak, whether it will be helpful or not. Some of you might say, but sir, kayo, ayaw nyo sabihin, pero ibang departamento sasabihin na. Because they make their own assessment. But sometimes, I also call them up. Na, boss, nagkakakomplikasyon kami kasi sinabi nyo ito. Pwede bang tapusin muna natin bago na? Diba? But we'll try to answer all of your questions. So before that, I'd also like to thank Yusek Manalo, our former acting secretary and one of our senior diplomats. Without him, you know, the success of ASEAN and of DFA, of course, with Executive Secretary, Ambassador Painor, Asek Helen, but beyond that, as Yusek for Policy, he's been one of the haligas ng DFA. Yusek Sara is also with us today. If you've been looking for her, it's my fault. I really told her that with 10 million OFWs abroad, you have to be there on the site and find out how to help, what the problem is, and how to fix the system. Because all of us say that we have to fix the system, but ano ba talaga ang aayusin? So that's where I'd like to just communicate 3 points. The administration and DFA focus for next year is a better life for all Filipinos. Okay? So when we say a better life for all Filipinos, what does that have to do with DFA? First, the independent foreign policy, friends to all, enemies to none. Last night, we had a small Thanksgiving gathering, and a former Senate President was telling the President that I've been around for 40 years, but ngayon ko lang nakita na several countries, even rival countries, coming together, paying attention to the Philippines, the Philippine President, and helping us. So, yung more than $30 billion in loans, commitments, investments, are product of the independent foreign policy, not of the DFA, partly of the Philippines, but partly of the direction of President Duterte. No? So the build, and we're very happy that Fitch upgraded us from BBB minus to BBB. No? So tutugma ngayon sa ating build, yung sa Fitch. No? And it's a big boost, it's a big pat on our back. Several countries, Japan, China, US, Canada, even the Chief Executive of Hong Kong, SAR, Australia, Korea, no? ASEAN countries have been telling us, wag lang may mangyari na malaking disaster or malaking calamity sa mundo. The world's economy is moving forward, and they're very, very, very bullish or excited about the Philippines. So the task of the DFA is to help build these bridges, get this financing, these grants, the friendships into partnerships. No? Of course, the other departments like the DOF, the DTI, the NEDA, problema nila paano maging inclusive ito. Diba? The Bureau of Fisheries, the DA, etc. Second, when you say DFA, dalawa talaga pumapasok sa isip ng tao, diba? Passport, saka OFW. Why haven't we been talking too much about passports? Because, and ASEC Frank is there, no? Yusek Joel couldn't be here today because they're fixing some of the things with the DBM, no? For next year, no? To make the operations smoother. When we talk about the passports, you have to look where we were coming from without pointing fingers. For example, the increase in demand. Ang daling sabihin, dapat na-predict nyo yan. Diba? O kaya yung kulang tayo sa regional consular offices. No? So rather than point fingers, we worked on it. So Congress approved several. So we're going to have new regional consular offices in between 7 to 9 places across the country. There have been 4 vans that have been delivered. And each van has about 5 machines. Each machine can do 80 to 100. So, ikot namin yan. So, from 3 months waiting to get an appointment, we're now at 6 weeks. No? If you, even on your cell phone, if you go to, just Google DFA appointments, go to the DFA website, lagay nyo, make an appointment start. Makikita nyo na sa ibabaw, no? Making the website more friendly. Nakalagay doon when's the first date na available. I checked the other day, the first date was February 2. So it's only December 15, so that's about what? 6-7 weeks away. No? So from 12 weeks to 7 weeks is the reform, but kulang pa rin yan. To those asking, do we ever want to attain the point na walang appointments? Yes. But the problem is kung wala kang appointment system kahit 1 day ahead or 3 days ahead or 1 week ahead, paano pag pumunta ka doon, sobrang haba ng pila na hindi ka rin naasikaso. And then wala kang assurance na the next day, ikaw ang una sa pila. So the perfect appointment system is if libre today, right now you can look at it. Think of online booking sa airlines, di ba? Basta't may seats available, dapat pag online mo, nandun. So kahit 1:30 ngayon, kung nakalagay 4 o'clock may appointment, pwede mo i-book. So that's the goal of the DFA next year. How we're going to achieve it, Yusek Joel and ASEC Frank can give you the specifics, no? But basically, it's by having more people, more machines, so producing more passports every day, then streamlining the process, and then yung 10-year passport na regalo syempre ng Kongreso sa atin. Pagdating naman sa OFWs, tatlo ang titignan natin eh. Una, preventive. Di ba? Dapat hindi mapunta talaga ang ating mga kababayan sa mga lugar na either may danger or mataas ang rate ng probability na ma-abuse sila. Ang problema natin, at yun ang dinidiscuss namin sa loob, no, ng mga naging ambassadors all around, whether it's places that hindi mo iisipin na may abuse, like Europe or US, or whether it's some countries in the Middle East na parating may reports ng abuse, ang consensus nga nila is sometimes the law and our actions do not correspond to economic realities. Ano ibig sabihin doon? Magbaban ka, katulad ngayon sa Libya, no? Sa Lebanon, no? Sa Lebanon, meron tayong ban. But right now, we have 28,000 Filipinos doon. Di ba? Ewan ko, pag tinanggal yung ban ko, konti ba o dadami? No? There are areas that we do not allow domestics, no, or domestic helpers. Ang problema, dahil pinapayagan yung ibang OFW doon, pumupunta sila doon, then nag-work as domestic, pero hindi sinasubmit sa amin yung kontrata. So there has to be a real discussion with OFW groups, with former ambassadors, with DOLE, with all of those involved, with the media, no, na nagbabantay at gumagawa ng special reports dito. Ano ba ang magiging effective, no, sa bawat bansa, sa preventive? Okay. Secondly is, pag nandun ka na, yung everyday maintenance. No? And we plan to use technology to be able to be there for our kababayans. No? Meaning, more social media engagement. If DFA can come up or partner with someone to have its own app. If we can start putting social media or communication officers in each post na walang ginawa kung hindi communications and i-manage ang communications. No? Those are the things that we are putting into place and studying. No? And then thirdly, yung after nila maging OFW or while they're OFW, yung pamilya nila. And ang nakita namin immediate systemic solution dyan is magkaroon ng cabinet cluster on OFW. At yan ang recommendation namin. I've talked to the CAPSEC about it. Na-mention ko lang kay Presidente, but the details of course will come in the proposal. So we're proposing na first magkaroon ng OFW cluster para everyone that has to do with OFW and their families, mapag-usapan ito. And then secondly, we can form an interagency. Di ba dun sa campaign against drug, nagbuo sila ng ICAD, ng interagency committee against drug, para nag-uusap lahat. PDEA, NBI, Dangerous Drug Board, PNP. So we want to do that then with the OFWs. And I'll show you one way we can connect the dots. In the next few weeks, Wednesday, meron sa Clark, January, February, DOTR, DPWH will have a lot of groundbreaking. But tanungin niyo po yung both private and public sector, nauubusan ng mga skilled workers. Whether they're master plumbers, whether they're electricians, whether mga latero, whether they're mga veterans sa construction industry, no? Because may boom talaga eh, whether it's in real estate or construction. So the interagency has to be able to talk to everyone. Talk to the countries who are going to fund. Can you train some of our people there? So like the OTR is planning a rail academy or a railway academy. But that will come later on pa, pag nakatayo na yung mga railway at pagka itra-train mo na yung engineers, maintenance crew, etc. What about now na i-build pa lang yung railway? And we're only talking about those areas na klaro na i-build, di ba? Manila-Clark, Clark going to the north, Manila-Calamba, Manila-Bicol, no? What about, for example, the Mindanao Railway System, no? Which will be a very good, it will be a game-changing project in Mindanao. But you will need the workers. No? It's not that easy na kumuha ka sa Mindanao ng workers, lipat mo ng Clark. Kumuha ka sa Ilocos ng workers, ilipat mo ng Visayas. No? So all of this, we will be developing expertise, whether it's seaports, airports, railways. No? So an interagency of OFWs can get some of our OFWs abroad who want to come home and use their expertise here na kung tama yung presyo or yung sweldo or yung benefits sa kanila. And it can also help, talk to the other countries na i-train nyo na yung trainers. So kung 1,000 workers ang kailangan nyo, you need 300 electricians. Ano ba naman yung kumuha kayo ng 20, i-train nyo na doon ng 6 months, pagbalik sila naman mag-train dito. No? So there's a lot of things we can do. Each department is doing their best to do this. But sometimes it's about cooperation and collaboration. It's not about only one department doing its best. No? So for example, DFA, we're actually basically kami taga-network eh. Diba? So, kung halimbawa sabihin ng isang country, may breakthrough sila sa fisheries. Hindi naman under the DFA ang fisheries, under DA yan. Diba? So kami, taga-bridge sa kanila. Alalayan sila, doon ba sila pupunta, susundin ba yung kay Presidente na hindi pwedeng frivolous o junket yung trips, no? So these are the dynamics. So those are the 3 ways that we think that the DFA can help in having a better life for all Filipinos in 2018, no? Through the independent foreign policy and economic diplomacy, through the focus on the OFWs, and then dun po sa immediate na hiningi sa amin sa passports, no? Then can I invite you Monday? Monday, we will be signing the revisions in the guidelines for both the Legal Assistance Fund and for the Assistance to Nationals. As you know, upon the direction of the President and the approval of the DBM and Congress, from 400 million, magiging 1 billion pesos na yung pondo na pwedeng pagkunan ng tulong ng mga OFWs abroad. I'll give you a sneak peek. No? For example, dati, let's say kung taga Cotabato ka, no? Or let's say you're from Pangasinan, no? Pwede ka mamili from Middle East to Naiya or Middle East to Pampanga, no? Sa Macapagal International Airport. Pero ang pamasahe na ibibigay sa iyo hanggang doon lang. Or kung sa Davao Airport ka, hanggang Davao Airport lang. Hindi papunta sa North Cotabato, halimbawa. But now, we're calling it door-to-door. No? From whatever door, whether it's from from their employer's house, whether it's from the embassy, whether it's from a NGO facility, hanggang sa bahay nila. So these are examples, no? But I don't want to preempt ang mga nag-work on this, and they will be briefing you on Monday, 3 o'clock, and we'll be signing that. So that sa January, very smooth. Some of this we've been testing already. We just have to get more legal authority or more paperwork done. But once we finish with the guidelines, it'll be easier. Ganun din sa Legal Assistance Fund. No? One example is before, dapat nasa korte na bago mo gamitin yung Legal Assistance Fund. Pero maraming countries, iba ang police procedure nila sa court procedure. So, ang ginagawa ng iba, pag nalaman magrereklamo yung Pilipino, isusumbong sa police. False claim na nagnakaw, na nag-vandalize, etc. So, nandun sa police. May kaso. May kaso sa police, hindi makaalis ng bansa, hindi makuha passport, etc. So, although we can help, we cannot use the Legal Assistance Fund. But that's the one thing they're remedying, that at any point in time, this Legal Assistance Fund can be used. So, I'll stop there. I know it's a year-ender. I know marami kayong questions about what happened this year and what to expect. So let me stop there so there's more time for you to ask questions. So again, thank you very much everyone and thank you for this opportunity.
Let's have the first question. Jeff?
Sir, ito may video sa DFP. Yung tungkol sa, kasi may nabanggit yung sa NPA yung medyo Sir, sabi niyo na pwedeng mawala yung asylum status ni Joma pag na-declare sa court ng terrorist o NPA. Sir, pinontal ni Joma yung sabi niya, hindi mo pwede gawin niya dahil na-clear na siya sa, may court ruling na sa Netherlands sa clearance.
Thanks for that question, Jeff. No? Let me start with the premises. Ang premise natin, we want peace in every part of the world, in every part of the Philippines. Whether with the communists, whether with other rebel groups, with the MNLF, kahit sabihin nyo, kahit sa bahay, gusto natin ng peace sa asawa natin, di ba? Kasi kung wala kang peace, di ba, walang stability. And walang stability, walang development and progress. So there's no doubt that this administration started out not only giving a hand, but really bending backwards sa CPP, NPA, NDF. Ang problema, they refuse to have a ceasefire. Ang sabi nila, pag may ceasefire, surrender yon. Ceasefire pareho So kung nag-ceasefire ba ang military, ibig sabihin, nag-surrender din ang military sa kanila. So if you look at most, I'm not sure if all, but if you look at most successful peace talks, conflict resolution around the world, yung ceasefire is essential. Kasi para tayo nagsusuntukan, Jeff, tapos, so yung, stop muna, ceasefire muna habang nag-uusap. Pero habang nag-uusap, pinipitik ko tenga mo. Di ba? Paano ka hindi malinis? No? Ito, hindi lang pitik ng tenga, nagpapatayan. So, yes, there are also complaints that, by the NPA that there are operations against them. Pero, sinabi naman ng AFP, they're willing to have a ceasefire kung magsi-ceasefire din sila at mag-uusap. Di ba? Okay, so I explained to you what we want to happen, why we want it to happen. But what happened? So despite giving them several cabinet positions, despite the President having direct dialogues with them, letting them in Malacanang, despite dealing with both the legal fronts and the NPA and PNP, no? Parang hindi niya malaman anong direction ng NDF. Saan niyo ba gustong dalhin to? Kung peace talks, dapat peace is essential. Diba? Hindi take over government. Give and take talaga. May socio-economic reforms and some radical changes that have to happen. Given sa amin yun. But saan niyo ba gustong dalhin? Diba? Yun ang hindi malinaw. Tapos nga, tuloy-tuloy yung revolutionary taxation, tuloy-tuloy pagsusunog sa mga projects ng DOTR, ng DPWH, tuloy-tuloy yung pag-recruit nila sa mga areas, sa mga lugar ng IPs, no? That's why the military is saying, hindi ceasefire yan. Ginagamit nyo lang yung pagkakataon para lumakas kayo. Kung kayo man nasa gobyerno, why would you give the enemies of the state an opportunity magpalakas? So, I was just responding to a question, will the DFA move that the CPP NPA founder, Joma Sison, be expatriated or be, kung magkaroon po ng pag-uusap or whatever, by whatever legal means, pauwiin siya dito. So I answered in a hypothetical manner, in general, not only applicable to him but anyone. Sabi ko, pag nag-asylum ka, refugee ka kasi. No? And may mga international law dyan na may basihan. Diba? For example, and usually ang basihan dyan, meron kang credible or real threat na inaapi ka sa bansa mo for a political, religious, cultural, or whatever belief. Diba? And that your life or your liberty, your freedom is in danger. So ang sinasabi ni Joma, kompleto na yung mga kaso doon at na-meet niya lahat yon. So he's referring to some cases from 2009 going back. But remember, these cases does not give him the blanket authority to do anything he wants. Meaning, if the government can prove that he is complicit, he is part of the conspiracy na sunugin ang mga projects ng DOTR, ang mga plantation, ang mga kumpanya. These are acts of terrorism. No? And if it's acts of terrorism, hindi ka na refugee dahil sa inaapi ka. You're a terrorist hiding behind refugee status. No? So the government will not shrink or hindi kami atras from making that distinction. Kung talagang discriminated against or may danger sa'yo, tama lang na mag-refugee ka. That's your right. May nagsisik din ng asylum dito sa Pilipinas. May refugees din ng ibang countries na pumupunta sa atin. But if you're going to use that and then do terrorist acts, no? We're going to inform the government that you're not harboring a refugee. You're not giving a right of asylum to that person. What you're doing is you're harboring a terrorist. And you are helping terrorist acts be committed. And sino may gusto nun? Diba? So balik na rin mo sitwasyon, no? May Vietnamese, may Chinese, may Russian, may American. for one reason or the other, sought asylum na sa Pilipinas. But na-discover natin that he controls an armed unit at nakikidnap sila o namamarel, nanununog. Oh. Will we keep him here? Or if the proper evidence is shown to us and the proper legal procedures, will we not tell him, we cannot harbor terrorists. So, yun yung context nun. So, I hope I clarified it. It's not specific to Chairman Joma Sison. It's a warning to everyone. Diba? And it's also something that we have to do to protect our nation.
Next question.
Sir?
Follow up lang on that. Sir, sorry. Having said so, sir, paano yan? As an alter ego of the president, do you think there's no hope for us to make peace with these people?
The president doesn't believe in not having hope. Sabi niya, never, never. Never mo sabihin na never, no? Of course, when he speaks to make a point, diba? Sometimes he makes that point, no? But if you go back to the why, no, peace, no, there's always hope. Remember ang exact words ni Presidente, at this time, and the way it's going, no more. Hindi na ako makikipag-usap sa inyo. But if you, I don't know kung, tawag ko dun sa account, sa Instagram, at sa Facebook na
Social media.
Hindi yung, diba, verified. Hindi ko alam kung verified na account ni Joma Sison yung binabasa ko eh. Minsan palaban, minsan okay lang, minsan brutal din. But a few days ago, na-monitor ko, nakalagay doon parang, let's stop throwing dirt or hitting each other, let's start talking. Diba? But then, a few days after, Duterte is the biggest terrorist in the world. Eh. So, I don't know kung verified account yun. But let me give you that as an example. Diba? It takes two to tango. It takes two to fight. But it takes more than two to have peace. And to be fair to the peace negotiators, the partners in peace, no, whether it's ASEAN countries, Asian countries, European countries, Scandinavian countries, no, they continue to move. Kagabi lang, may isa na lumapit kay Presidente kasi part sila nung process. Nagtatanong din sa kanya, so President, ano bang ganito, ganyan, no? I myself have communicated to representatives from the Netherlands, Norway, and other countries, no, that the ceasefire is essential. Diba? Yung magkaroon tayo ng ceasefire, then we can talk, really talk. Diba? Pero nagbabarilan tayo, di yun. So, ang point sa lahat na to, si Presidente, all the way. So, either peace, all the way peace tayo, or ayaw niya ng peace, I have to protect the nation and get rid of this rebellion. Yun ang stand niya.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, Sir, we just want to confirm first, on December 5, there was a vote in the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. I just want to confirm that the vote of the Philippines, one of 3 countries that proposed the resolution condemning yes, the violence in Myanmar. I just want to get your thoughts if the rationale is consistent with the previous vote in the General Assembly draft resolution. And also, yesterday, Medical Group MSF reported that about 6,700 Rohingya were killed in Myanmar, including 700 children. Will that be a factor when you vote in the plenary in the UN General Assembly on that resolution?
First, let me give you copies of the resolution. Because sometimes, lalo sa online, because you have to report it right away, kung sino ma-interview, so kung sinabi ng interview, no, whether it's from DFA, the opposition, Congress, Senate, pag sinabi niya, the Philippines said no to humanitarian help for North Bangkayan State. If you read the resolution, hindi humanitarian lang. Pinaghalo-halo na may political na, may condemnation na, and everything. So let me repeat to you what we want to do. We want immediate relief against violence in all forms, on all sides sa Myanmar. So the first thing and when I say we, that's the Philippines and ASEAN. Let me tell you what we agree on first before what we disagree on. Second, we want the Kofi Annan recommendatory commission recommendations implemented. This is another way of saying addressing the roots of the problem in that area. Third, we want a continuous dialogue between Myanmar and Bangladesh because many of the refugees have crossed over to Bangladesh and dire ang situation ng not only humanitarian, actually kasi pati yung abuses eh. No? So it's not only yung hunger, sakit, di ba? Pero may mga pinapatay, may nire-rape and everything. No? And then the fourth is full access for humanitarian efforts. Okay, that's what we agree on. There's a fifth thing we agree on, that the situation there is complex. There's more than 100 minorities in Myanmar. The fighting is not just between Buddhists or the military and Muslims. The refugees are not only Muslim. There are other minorities of other religions who are also refugees, except hindi papuntang Bangladesh pumunta sa iba. So yung sulugan ng bahay, ng village, yung Repan, etc., no, is not confined, no, just to one religion. Doesn't give us any comfort to say that it's not just one, it's all. No, but it's just to emphasize that complicated yung situation. So as chair of ASEAN, ang primary consideration natin, how can we help? How can we go in? How can we put boots on the ground? No? Civilian boots, no? Humanitarian boots, no? Not military boots. No? Because the more outsiders you have, the more chances magsa-stop ang fighting. So some will say, but sir, kung yun din naman ang gusto ng UN at may UN resolution na papasukin sila, ba't hindi mo papasukin? Kung tignan mo yung UN resolution, nakalagay na doon condemning the military of Myanmar. So pagpasok ng UN, binabaril din yung UN. So it did not help anyone. Diba? It just the advocates or making noise that saying na may nagawa. Diba? And that's their job. And it's tama that they make noise para the world notices. But right now, that's not our job. Our job is to make sure the Philippine Red Cross, headed by Senator Dick Gordon, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent, and the ASEAN humanitarian mechanisms like the AHA, get into Myanmar, which they have, no? And continue to get in there. That's why we voted no then, and that's why we reconfirmed our vote on the plenary. Because if you look at the resolution, and only can you give them a copy kasi inanalyze na natin yun. Maraming statements doon that we agree with, pero marami din that we disagree with. So, yung kumbaga sa inyo sa media, pregnant question, di ba? So, how can you answer yes or no, or vote yes or no, if you agree with half and disagree with half? But to clarify things, we had an explanation of vote doon sa human rights side. So, na-explain natin yung na-explain ko kanina, what we want versus what we don't want. No? But of course, like the rest of the world, we're hoping that it can be resolved right away and that human suffering will be addressed. What's the second question? 6-2? Sorry, the first one was the vote and then the...
It was just about the figures, sir. About 6,700 were reported killed, 700 of these.
The reports we're getting, you know, will devastate your soul. I mean, if you hear the stories, this is one part of the job that masyado akong apektado, or I hope I did not know. Kasi I get to talk to like the Indonesian and Malaysian governments and their foreign ministers, Minister Hanifa and the foreign minister din ng Indonesia, no? Are very much involved in coordinating all of this, trying to address it, trying to pressure, no, ASEAN, the world. So, you know, Minister Hanifa and Mr. Retno, I admire what they're doing. Sometimes we do it all together. Sometimes iba yung stand ng Malaysia. Sometimes iba stand ng Indonesia sa atin. But yung intention at gustong puntahan, iisa. And the problem is I get to talk to them, get to talk to their people, get to talk to Senator Gordon, get to talk to our ambassador. And if you listen to the stories, no, of rarapin sa harap ng asawa, tapos papatayin lahat ng anak, yun, something you cannot imagine that people will do. But it's happening. No? So, with that kind of stories and realities, it's easy na unahin yung anger at unahin yung condemnation, which should come. But really, ang tinitingnan ng Pilipinas, how do you stop muna? Stop the abuses and address the humanitarian. Diba? Because even if you have the strongest condemnation but it's ongoing, then people will be suffering at walang relief. Diba? So, kumbaga sa nalulunod, we'll address everything else, pero tapunan mo muna ng salbabida. Yun yung ating way. Some admire us for making that hard stand, some criticize us. Some criticize us openly, but tell us quietly we understand. So it's one of those things sa international diplomacy and politics. No?
Last question, RMN, Joyce. RMN, please.
Sir, yung reaction po sa pag-react po ng China dun sa sign po ng Mexico and Mexico sa extension po of investment protection area.
Friends to all, enemies to none means that we will give due respect to each country. And part of our respect and our relationship with China is found in the joint communique way back when we established relations with them. And it's very clear there that we will follow the One China policy. So let me reiterate that the country will prioritize, will embrace, will put in the middle of our relationship, will respect the One China policy. So I've assured the Chinese ambassador 3 times, last time was last night in a private event, that the signed agreements were technical and economic agreements between MECO and TECO. The confusion was because of the presence of a USEC nandito yan. So I've spoken to SECMON, of course yung intentions, yung gusto, yung investments, yung protection, nandun yun, no? But I've talked to the Executive Secretary last night, so we've sent out to the Cabinet again the copy of the executive orders way back to the time of President Cayetano of how to implement the One China policy. Including here is that government officials of the Philippines cannot receive officials of Taiwan, and we cannot have official dealings. So this is all part of it. So in a sense, we understand bakit nagreklamo yung China because may nag-witness nga. But we've clarified with them that that wasn't the intention. People here, it was a MECO-TECO. No? So again, it's a learning curve for everyone. Remember, Taiwan with mainland China, yung relations niya nagbabago-bago din eh. Diba? So pati yung how sensitive both are to their other friends, kasama din yun. So we have to input that and we have to follow the One China policy. So I'm assuring the Filipinos, our government and China that we will follow the One China policy.
Thank you very much.
Ano yung policy po ng gobyerno sa kaya patunayan na pwede na mas matindi pa yung epekto ng medical vaccine?
Well, first, as a department under the Duterte administration as an alter ego, we will follow him. Which ang sinabi niya, let there be an independent investigation. Huwag tayo magmadali, magsabi kung sinong may kasalanan. No? So we are monitoring very closely. In fact, the DFA had a small part, diba? Dahil nga we were present or our ambassador was present in some of these meetings. No? So we have been monitoring all of this. And at the proper time, we will take all legal remedies available to the Philippines. Whether it's reimbursement, going against the company, going against people in the company, no? So there are a lot of revealing things. So for example, sa hearing ni Senator Dick at ng Blue Ribbon Committee, Senator JB yesterday, no? Yung sinabing may record yung kumpanya of corruption in or bribery in other countries, no? So these are lessons learned for the Philippine government, di ba, na bago niya iharap sa presidente, dapat na-vet lahat yan at alam niyo yung reputation, di ba? But remember, it's easy also to smear a reputation. Sa infra, nangyari yan, di ba? yung DCDA, sinabi, blacklisted yung isang kumpanya na may MOU. Yung pala, blacklisted sa isang organization lang, pero hindi sa iba. And binigyan din pala ni Secretary Singson during President Aquino's time ng project. So, it's a balancing act. Di ba? In one sense, when do you not talk to someone because may reputation? And in another sense, when do you make a judgment call na baka yung reputation paninira ng kanyang competitors? Di ba? So, we cannot make a judgment yet now because we're hearing this, we're analyzing this. I'm asking the same question sa DFA. Didn't we advise them? Kasi like right now, pag sinabi sa amin, may request na i-meet si Presidente nito, we give a short brief and we give a recommendation whether to brief or not, no? But ayaw namin pangunahan yung investigations, but whether it's filing cases, reimbursements, if there's a need, no, for interaction between our government and their government, diba? Or if it's completely commercial transaction. The good thing is that there are international laws, there are international business laws, there are commercial laws that are all parts of these contracts between in our procurement process. No? So it's not as if fly-by-night na pwedeng tumakas na lang yan and ano, no? So I think the main concern of President Duterte right now is to make sure those children and everyone vaccinated, you know, is not in danger. Or if they're in danger, how do we monitor and how do we give the proper medical attention para hindi nga magkaroon ng severe dengue or any other side effects.
Secretary, that report from the ambassador from France, were you able to verify or compare it to what President Aquino had said yesterday? Did you find anything?
Actually, ang haba ng hearing yesterday, and we had a couple of activities and work. So, hindi ko pa nakikita yung full report. But I did see the report ng DFA. So, we're having it compared not only to yesterday, but kasi the trigger of this is that the DFA monitored that there are some discrepancies between yung sinasabi ni former Secretary Garin sa House. So that triggered a letter saying that our notes show something different. Not necessarily lying, ha? Guys, yung inconsistency and lying are two different things. It can be lying, but pwede rin may clarification, di ba? So like, yung unang sinabi that they did not meet with them, then they said 2 years ago, meron palang dinner. So, sa amin kasi, very factual. That's one thing I'm learning myself in DFA, how to take notes, how to summarize it, and how to keep it. No? So we're going to compare that, and then we're at the service of those investigating. So pag may nag-request, as long as it's not qualified secret, then we can give it. If it's qualified secret, I have to get authorization from the Executive Secretary.
Last na lang, can you comment lang po sa AMPI report? I know you just said na meron tayong natawag sa strategic silence. So AMPI report cited that yung China daw po had constructed what appeared to be a new high-frequency radar array at the northern end of Ferry Cross Reef and other reefs within the Spratly. So I'm not sure if you've seen the report or if you would like to comment.
So, can I comment in general, no? And specifically, meron din naman ako nababasa sa inyong mga dot-coms nyo the last few days about certain activities, no? And then of course the AFP, the DND, myself, NSA, Coast Watch, we're in close coordination. No? But let me tell you what I can say. No? So ang intention ni President Duterte is from many countries being aggressive of reclaiming, building, then having presence in marami pang features na unoccupied. So ang intention ni President Duterte noon is to lower the temperature, go back to the DOC which says that yung unoccupied or uninhabited, hindi inhabit. So we're not saying, we've never said that tumigil lahat o walang ginagawa yung iba. What we said is that they're not now occupying any new feature that's uninhabited and there's no new buildings in new areas, etc. Sa old areas, we've monitored that a lot are still building sa kanilang hawak. Sa Pag-asa, we're repairing. Malaysia, Vietnam, China are repairing. But everyone is saying it's defensive. So that's where the COC comes in. And that's where further discussions after the COC. So right now, we said, everyone is saying we want it to become a sea of peace, cooperation, and development. It won't become that if we militarize. So makita nyo sa statements ng ASEAN, everyone is saying militarize. But to be fair to China, sinasabi niya, di lang naman kami nagmi-militarize. At militarize lang ba kapag ka may weapons ka sa island or sa feature? What about yung nagpapadala ng kanilang armada or nagpapadala ng isang fleet sa area? Isn't that militarization there? Di ba? But then, in our parlance, freedom of navigation. So kasi sa China, freedom of navigation is for commercial ships. For the US, freedom of navigation is including military ships. At tayo, meron tayong treaty with the US, so as long as they inform us, hindi tayo maangal when they go into our waters. But to those that we don't have a treaty, pag pumasok yung military ship nila, maangal tayo. No? So yun yung dynamics doon. So if you're asking, do we plan to address that? Yes, sa bilateral consultative mechanism. That's in the bilateral, in the area of bilateral relationship and bilateral consultation, yon. If it's brought up in multilaterals, we don't, di tayo ma-atras from discussing it and coming up with solution. But we are sensitive and careful to bring the discussions to a positive note where people develop mutual trust, because pag may trust, mas madali yung pakiusapan. So question, are we still being questioned when we enter certain areas? Yes. But we also continue to question them. Have we lost a single inch of land or water, any features when President Duterte became president? Hindi. But we lost a lot in the previous administration and administrations. Again, we're not blaming them, but we're trying to solve that problem. So, ang tingin ni President Duterte, if we went all out criticism, microphone diplomacy and everything, will keep winning international support and legal cases, but there won't be an enforcement mechanism. China will continue, or other countries, not only China, other countries will continue building and getting more areas. No? And tayo, we want to focus on development. No? So on that point, in the joint communications between the joint statement between the Chinese Premier Li and you and President Duterte, clear doon that we're talking about joint exploration. But coming up with a legal framework is the challenge. So we're consulting legal experts about that. But that's something we want, given that Malampaya has a shelf life. I'm one of the Filipinos praying that there's technology or new discoveries sa Malampaya so that it's good for another 20-25 years. But just in case hindi, no, we have to make sure that may source tayo ng oil and natural gas or both. 5 minutes? Last 1 or 2 questions?
Sir, do you have any updates on your Yemen conflict? Because we're getting reports that a lot of Filipinos are trapped in Yemen and Yemen.
Siguro I'll call Sarah right after this. No? I'm not just sure what we can say or not, but she's just come back and has an update regarding that. So, pakisabi lang kayo si Sarah, yung question niya and what anything else?
Reaction from the international community regarding the extension of martial law in Mindanao. Have you received any?
So far, I think there's calm for 3 reasons. One, the whole world knows the threat of terrorism. So yung, despite criticisms, bakit ang tagal, yung Marawi, etc., we're actually getting congratulations around the world for acting upon it decisively and a war of that magnitude to be actually solved. You saw how ISIS slowly but effectively took over areas of Iraq and Syria. You see certain countries around the world na have 2 governments or nag-aaway. No? So secondly, because they know that under the present constitution, may limits ang martial law. We explained that in the meeting with the diplomatic, to the diplomatic corps, no? And then thirdly, because of media, because you're free to go to Mindanao, you're free to look at it, etc., may konting comfort. Having said that, diba, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So the assessment, it's just very recent. So of course, the international community are looking at more of the why, how's it going, etc. But definitely we'll be scheduling a briefing to them once our AFP, DND can get everyone together to share more information with them. But many of these embassies, by the way, are sharing information with us about the threats in Mindanao, the threats in the region, and returning jihadists. So yung iba kaya hindi nagtatanong bakit nyo kailangan ng martial law doon, kasi sila mismo nagsasabi sa atin na you have to take measures because the main group has been neutralized, but there are a lot of there are pockets of support, no? And then developments in the Middle East might push some to fund terrorist groups, diba? We saw that cycle, diba, na minsan parang lahat against na yung extremist group, but then may mangyayari that will be a driver for more recruitment sa extremism. Ganun din sa funding, terrorist funding. May mga nangyayari na tumataas ulit eh. Sir?
Do we have any contingency plan for the 40,000 Philippines in Saudi Arabia?
Our ambassador there, Ambassador Herrera, is very good. He briefed me privately on the plans. But there was a point in time na madalas na yung testing, so he had to come out with the plans. So Filipino leaders doon are assigned names and numbers and contacts of their kababayans, and may assign na ng mga ports and everything. But it's not without difficulty because ang pinakamadali pag nag-evacuate ka is, aside from going to the other side of Korea, is going to Japan. But the problem is, North Korea is saying, target din ang Japan. Diba? So that's why every time the North Koreans tell us, the DPRK, that we are friends, friendly relations, Philippines friends, we tell them back, yes, but if you target these countries or our region, it will affect us. So even if there's no Filipinos in these other countries, the impact of war in our region will be devastating to our economy, and more people will go hungry. But you cannot take out the fact that there are hundreds of thousands and millions of Filipinos around the globe and in ASEAN. So any country that they attack na may ballistic missile sila, intercontinental ballistic missile sila, may tatamaan ng Pilipino eh. So really the best plan is to prevent hostilities from happening. But as you said, Manong, hindi naman pwedeng panay prevent o asa tayo mag-prevent. We have to prepare. So these are being done. And then the other thing we're doing is monitoring Western countries with many nationals in this area. And we're monitoring also kung anong instructions sila sa sarili ng nationals.
Sir, follow-up na, sir. President Cayetano said yesterday in the birthday dinner of your wife, he intends to meet the AFP and to deal with the threat in North Korea, and he also said that China is in best position to actually help resolve the issue. Can you confirm the statement and elaborate?
About China being in the best position to do something, it's not something that only President Duterte has said. It's something that many leaders have said, either quietly or more vocally. Because also of the special relationship of DPRK and China. Having said that, hindi under the control ng China ang DPRK. It's a sovereign, independent nation. But President Duterte was saying if there's one country that has enough influence applying the political will, they can actually prevent this. And if you look at the map, no, you'll show that any nuclear war in that area will affect not only ASEAN, Japan, US, and Korea, but will affect China, and to a certain extent Russia. So let me confirm that he has been saying, he has been communicating through the airwaves to his friends in the leadership of China that they are a key player in the peace in the Korean Peninsula. Having said that, we have heard feedback from different countries that China is in fact doing certain things to help ease, the confrontation and to lower the temperature. No? About the AFP, yes, the President has stated, let me give you a background. The President has been talking to the Cabinet about being holistic sa security. Na yung crime, drugs, corruption, terrorism, war, hindi mo pwede sabihin sa isang tao na kaya may namatay sa pamilya mo dahil lang sa drugs, dahil lang binaral ng NPA, dahil lang may calamity, dahil may war. So security has to be holistic. As far as that person is concerned, isa lang tatanong niya sa gobyerno, safe ba pamilya ko o hindi? Di ba? Hindi niya tatanungin ano ang cause. Alam niya kung anong cause eh. Kung ano nakapatay sa kamag-anak, kung ano nakapag-rape, ano nakapag-lason sa kanyang pamilya. Ang inaanap niya sa gobyerno, how do you keep us safe? So the President posed a rhetorical question because this is basically a business group, no? Mga top business leaders who are also partners of Taguig in Development and partners of the Philippines, no? So ang pinost ng question ng Presidente, if simultaneous yung attack and then mangyari yung war in the Korean Peninsula, are we ready? So it's something daw that he will pose to the AFP. I am sure the AFP will answer, yes, we are. Then the President will respond, show me the plans. No? Because it's only by doing this process will you see saan tayo kailangang magdagdag. Diba? Equipment ba o tao? Kampo ba dapat dagdagan or equipment? Do we need more attack helicopters? Do we need a submarine? No? So it's only through looking at all of this holistically. Do we need more money for PNP or more for AFP? Do we shift from AFP, PNP to PDEA? Or do we allow the LGUs to come in? So yung message ng Presidente is strategic. He told it in public because it's a warning to all government officials to be security conscious.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Merry Christmas sa inyo lahat. See you sa Monday, yung mga available.